Okay.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. I'm super excited to be here with Kerri Maher, who is subbing for Jane Healey today, who is on vacation. Not from me, but just in life. So you know that we're here to talk about historical fiction recommendations, and Kerri Maher is I feel like a world famous historical fiction writer. Her latest book, The Paris Bookseller, amazing. So she's going to be talking about book recs in just a second. I want to say thanks to the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs. And I'd also like to thank Kerri and Jane, who let us share this program with other libraries, because of course, when libraries work together, we make magic. I'm going to ask for some crowdsourcing here in the chat. Feel free to put in the books that you're reading and enjoying nowadays. It doesn't have to be historical fiction. If it is, even better. And if you, I will send out a list of all of the books Kerri recommends, as well as anything in the chat. So don't feel like you have to take notes furiously, just enjoy. Kerri, thank you so much for being here. Exciting. I'm gonna
Thanks so much
just
for
start with,
having me.
I, I'm gonna start with a quick question
Yes.
about why you like writing historical fiction.
So the reason I like writing historical fiction is the reason why all the readers who tell me they love to read historical fiction love to read it, which is I get to learn something while getting swept up in a great story.
Mhm.
And, I truly enjoy the research and learning part as much as I enjoy the writing and creating of the amazing story. So both of those things I think are just as exciting.
Mhm. And why do you think we love reading historical fiction?
Well, I mean, I do think it's that sort of amazing combination of feeling like you're learning something as you're learning about a particular historical time period or a person, sometimes both. So you're really like you're using that part of your brain, but you're also getting to relax. It's the most entertaining way possible to learn about history, right?
Mhm.
And very often we read historical fiction and we're inspired to go read the nonfiction about a particular time period or a person. I think sometimes historical fiction writers get criticized for making up too many things, but that is we always account for those things in our author's notes. I love writing those author's notes. They're like the great mea culpa of for historical fiction writers. But I also love reading other people's author notes because I learn a lot about their process that way. Um, yeah, so I think those are all the reasons.
So don't skip the author's notes. And
Don't skip those.
so
Yes.
agree that I think that historical fiction is a great gateway into learning and going into those nonfiction books. But even if you don't, I mean, there's no harm in just having a good time in a book.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
I mean, that's librarian speak for just read what you want, people.
Yes. I am in complete agreement with that. I am not a book snob at all. So,
I am glad. That's why I'm glad you're here. Okay, so let's get right into your first recommendation. I have to say that Kerri sent me the most awesome list. I mean, it feels like every time period, every kind of story you might want to read. So we're going to try to get to as many as possible. So the
yep.
first one is,
Before Dorothy by Hazel Gaynor. And it comes out next Tuesday, and I'm actually doing an event with her in Plainville next Tuesday night. So that's exciting. I don't know if anyone lives anywhere near there. Um, but this book is really terrific. She does this kind of amazing, wild reimagining of the sort of prequel to the Wizard of Oz story. And she doesn't really take the Frank Oz book and do a prequel to that, because that was written actually at the turn of the 20th century. She takes the movie version that came out in the 1930s and writes the prequel to that story. So it's set on the prairie during the years of the Dust Bowl and the Depression. And talk about learning some things. I really did not understand what the term Dust Bowl meant until I read this novel.
Mhm.
She has a really, really like somatic and tactile way of describing what it was like to live through this time period and to see the prairie go from something really amazingly beautiful to something that's been over farmed and dusty.
Mhm.
And like the idea that Dorothy, as this character with Toto and all the people could emerge from this moment is pretty incredible.
Mhm.
So I loved it.
And I personally love retellings or, reimaginings of stories that we already know because you already know the characters. It's the how does the author twist it so that we
Mhm.
can still recognize them, but they have a totally different backstory or story. The story is different. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Lots of Easter eggs. It's a
Oh.
big Easter egg hunt. Yes, this book.
Love it. I'm
Yeah.
also loving all the books that are being mentioned in the chat. You don't have to pay attention to it, Kerry, because I know you're
Okay.
busy thinking, but
Okay.
you guys are readers. I love it. I'm actually interviewing Mimi Matthews this summer, and you said you're going to be with Hazel Gaynor in at the Unlikely Story, and
Yes, at the Unlikely Story in Plainville next Tuesday night. So if anyone is going to be in the neighborhood, we'd love to see you.
awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so on to our next book.
Yes, so Confessions of a Grammar Queen by Eliza Knight. I love Eliza's writing. Um, if you may know her, she has written a lot of novels. You may know her as the co-writer with Denny S. Bryce of Why Can't We Be Friends, which is about Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe. She also wrote about Nancy Mitford of the infamous Mitford sisters in the Mayfair Bookshop, which is if you like books about books, that's that should be on your list. As should Confessions of a Grammar Queen, because this is sort of like Mad Men for the book crowd. Because it's about this woman who walks into the world of publishing in 1960 and she is determined to make it to the top of that ladder. And
Mhm.
you know, we all know, and I didn't live through the 1960s, but I've now read enough historical fiction and nonfiction to know what that moment was like. And so you're rooting for her the whole time. So it's really, really a fun book and
Mhm.
really for book lovers also.
I like that it's a fun book because somebody in the attendees said that they read Lessons in Chemistry, which is a fantastic book, but it's
Yeah.
not what you would expect.
Right.
It really did delve into um, the restrictions on women back in that time. So it's
Yep.
interesting. Did you find that this book had similar themes, or was it completely different?
Yeah. I mean, it has definitely has similar themes. I think, Lessons in Chemistry has sort of become this canonical historical work, historical novel at this point. I absolutely devoured that. And I also loved the Apple television series that was made of it.
Mhm.
Um so and they made some changes. It's always fun to sort of make a comparison between the book and the cinematic or television make of it. And they did a really great job and they made some strategic and really interesting changes to the story and the characters.
hmm Well, I do say that this cover, I'll show it again really quick because I think it's so fun in terms of like what you expect from this like sort of popcorn, pinkish,
Yes.
60s person,
Yep.
but probably has a lot more depth than just
Yes.
that color
Yes.
scheme, right?
Very feminist for sure. Uh, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah. Okay, so we had the next one is another really pink cover, which I actually have
Yeah.
this book in my possession. And I should say, Confessions of a Grammar Girl comes out today. There's a lot of books on my list that are coming out today. Today is a big day for
Okay,
books.
people, hit your libraries or indie bookstores.
Yes, for sure, for sure. So let's call her Barbie. You know what? I'm gonna go to the order from the bookstores or the libraries. I'm gonna hang out there for 1 minute and just say that for authors, that first week of sales is so important. So if you are considering it, and library circulation numbers matter too.
Mhm.
We want libraries to keep buying our books. So please put the book on hold at the library and or buy it this week if at all possible.
Mhm.
It's really amazing when the book has a great first week.
Yeah,
Okay. That's my
absolutely.
plug.
And
Um,
pre-orders. Don't forget
yes,
pre-orders.
also
Pre-orders are big.
pre-orders for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, let's call her Barbie. has actually been out for a few months at this point. Renee is a friend of mine, I have to say, and this is like this book, she worked so hard on this book. I read some early drafts of it. It is really terrific. If you liked the Barbie movie, if you're interested in Barbie, even if you don't like Barbie, this book is for you. And because again, you learn all about the sort of hidden history of how Barbie came to be.
Mhm.
Um, it's there's a most of the characters are real historical characters like Ruth Handler, who was the amazing businesswoman who created Barbie. But there's also there are other real historical figures, but there's a mix of fictional characters as well.
Mhm.
And it's such a fun book, and it's also extremely feminist. So this one is great. And RuPaul picked it for his book club. So what more need do you need? What more reason do you need?
Well, I'll just say that I have PTSD about Barbies because my brothers used to yank their heads off when I was a kid.
Oh.
So I didn't play with Barbies, but I wonder why we're so fascinated with that time period and Barbie, and women's rights at that time. And there seems like to be like a bunch of books coming out or have come out recently that really delve into that topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my last book was All You Have to Do Is Call, which was set
Mhm.
in Chicago in 1970 and 71. Yeah, similar time period. I think it's when so many things changed. There was just such an enormous push by those second wave feminists with the marches and founding now, and like the feminist mystique came out. It was such a flashpoint. So
Mhm.
naturally, those of us who are especially female writers of historical fiction, I think, are drawn to it like moths to a flame.
hmm Um,
Uh,
Mindy loves her Barbies. Val's not so interested, but the book should be read. Um,
yeah.
I have to ask you, since you just mentioned the 70s, I've been having this discussion with friends that people now consider the 80s to be ripe for historical fiction writing. And I'm like, nope, nope, the 80s are not historical fiction yet.
I know. Yes, I get why you're saying that. Um, they are though. The 50 years is for marketing purposes. 50 years is we don't have to personally view them as historical fiction, but for marketing purposes, the 80s are historical fiction. And if you want to complain to Tara Jenkins Reid.
I will. I refuse. I'm like, nope, nope. But enough about me. Let's go on to the next book.
Okay. So, all right. So this book comes out next week, also like before Dorothy. It's called These Heathens, and I'll be honest, I have not read this one. But speaking of Tara Jenkins Reid, she endorses this book. Is she said it's from the razor sharp and outrageously funny mind of Mia McKenzie. It becomes a vibrant novel exploring how one weekend can change your entire life. And so I'll just read you the first few lines of the jacket copy. Where do you get an abortion in 1960 Georgia, especially if your small town's midwife goes to the same church as your parents? Um, and then the last line of the description is These Heathens is a funny, poignant story about a Black woman's obligations and ambitions, what we owe to ourselves, and the transformative power of leaving your bubble, even for just one chaotic weekend. I mean,
Wow.
I am definitely going to read this book.
hmm
Um, obviously I also wrote about some similar themes, and all you have to do is call. So I'm always interested in to see how other people treat those themes, of reproductive justice and all of that good juicy stuff. But also Georgia, I've never even been to Georgia, so an opportunity to learn about that part of the country and all of that. So, and it's funny,
I it's a I have to how can that topic be funny?
right?
I don't understand that. And I think it takes a really special writer to make such
Yes.
a divisive topic at such a divisive time funny.
Yes, agree. 100% agree.
hmm
Which is why I'm so looking forward to reading it.
hmm
So, um,
So this is an interesting book because I think it's the first one where the protagonist is a Black character for that you've mentioned. So Do you feel like we're seeing more of these kind of stories now? Because like your characters are white. So and you talked about the fact that you wrote about similar themes in your last book, but is it very, very different from what Mia would write?
Oh, yes, I think so. And in fact, there is, oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, she is writing from her own on some level, we're all always writing from our own experience, right? So even if we're writing about someone from 150 years ago, there's you have to be able to connect to your main characters.
Mhm.
So, she's writing from her own experience as a Black woman in the world. So she is bringing that perspective to this character, this cast of characters. And, I so in my novel, I have three point of view characters, all of whom are white women. There's a very important secondary character who is Black, but I did not feel that it was appropriate for me to write from her perspective, right? But she's
Mhm.
a really important secondary character. And historically, she also fits historically accurately into that story.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think that it's important to be telling all the stories from many perspectives as much as we within our own powers and limitations, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
It does, and I think that it's not. I have more admiration for white writers who are inclusive in their stories without trying to be somebody else's voice. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because
Yeah,
like the world is inhabited by people who are Black and Asian and gay and all of that stuff. So your stories would be so much more flat if they only had white characters.
correct. Yes,
So.
100, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the same for anybody who's writing from like a Black perspective or or an Asian perspective or something that
Yep.
the world is inhabited by blah blah. Okay.
100%.
That was
Yes.
my soapbox and I'm gonna get off of it.
Yep. 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 Um, well, so and now we go to a different kind of like diversity, right? Which is Joanna Lowell's A Rare Find, which is a queer Victorian era historical romance. It comes out today. And I put this on the list. I haven't read this one either. However, I have read the queer historical romances of Alexis Hall, and they are terrific. I really enjoy them. And so this one just like leapt out at me. I'm like, oh, I would definitely enjoy this. Like look at the cover, England in the Victorian era is always fun. I'll read a little bit from the beginning of the description. When an aspiring archaeologist teams up with her childhood enemy, so we've got an enemies to lovers trope, right? For a treasure hunt, they find it impossible to bury their growing feelings in a charming queer historical romance from the author of A Sure Thing. So, it sounds like a cozy, you know, enemies to lovers romance set in the Victorian era. It just sounds great.
Mhm. So I will read that because I am always looking for good books that have that kind of diversity. But also if you like Alexis Hall, you might like Cat Sebastian or KJ Charles, who are also writing historical queer stories.
Yep.
So thank you for that. I'm really enjoying this list, as you
Yeah.
can
Oh,
tell.
good. I'm glad. I'm glad. And I'm glad you're able to add your, like, if I could have a superpower, it would be to read faster than I read. I'm such a slow reader, so my ability to like do what you're doing is hard, right? Because a lot of the time I'm reading for research. Most of my pleasure reading is audiobooks. So I'm a
Mhm.
big audiobook person.
I am too.
Yeah, love audiobooks.
Although I have to say that I only listen to books I've already read because I love to reread, but I don't have time.
Yeah,
So that's just me. But like read in any format that works for you. That's the important thing.
100%. Yes. So this is another one. So it's out today. It's by I'm not sure if it's Kira or Kyra Davis Lurie, The Great Mon. It's a retelling of The Great Gatsby set amongst LA's Black elite in 1945. Okay. So it is a just post World War II story. And I'm from California, so I'm a sucker for things that are set in California. So this is Los Angeles. I mean, look at that cover, right?
Mhm.
And The Great Gatsby is is one of my absolute hands down favorite books. Many writers love it. It's sort of a cliche. I'm okay with that. Um, and there have been a bunch of Gatsby kind of books that have come out since Gatsby itself, the original, came out of its 100 years of, what's it called? What's
Copyright.
Yeah, the copyright.
Mhm.
Um, so this I think this one sounds absolutely amazing. It sounds like it sounds like, it's the Gatsby milieu of wealthy people doing careless things, right? And there's the Charlie is the character who's the narrator, and he's looking at um these wealthy, kind of from the outside, these kind of wealthy, up and coming Black uh, actors and actresses in Los Angeles. So it's also a Hollywood story. There's just so many things to it. It looks terrific.
I love that. Again, not just for the diversity, but the fact that we don't hear those kind of things. Like you don't think of Black people having wealth back in 1945, right? But
Right?
to hear that they can potentially have the same stupid foibles is actually really interesting to me.
Yep. Right. It's very, all of it. Agree. I want to
Cool.
make sure we get to all the way through. So I'm getting a little, I think we're okay on time.
Oh, we're fine. And
You
I
know
also
better than
want,
I do.
yeah, I want to say that this next cover is probably my favorite.
Okay.
Go ahead. Tell us
Oh,
all
okay. Oh,
about
you
it.
don't put it up until I say it. Okay.
Yeah.
Phil Melanson Florenzer by a smaller publisher called Liverite. And this is, yeah, like what a cover that is, right? Like, look at that.
Evocative.
We would pick that up in the bookstore or the library, right? And be like, what is this about?
Absolutely.
You know, and so it's set during Renaissance era Florence. It's a debut novel. It reimagines the intersecting lives of three ambitious men, a banker, a priest, and a young gay painter named Leonardo. And I'll be honest, I was tugged toward this story because 100 million years ago, when I was in graduate school, I wrote a short story about Leonardo da Vinci. And I did all this. I sort of fell into this story. I don't even remember why anymore, but I did a lot of research. It's actually my first foray into historical fiction. I often forget about it, actually, because it was so long ago. But I did all this research and I wrote about Leonardo da Vinci. It was toward the end of his life. So I love that this writer, his debut is, takes a young Leonardo and puts him in his real life situation and crafts like what sounds like an amazing page turner of a story around him.
Hmm. Yeah, and that whole reimagining thing again of like an sort of a story that you wouldn't expect.
Right.
You think you know all about these characters and these people, but any good storyteller is gonna like surprise you.
Yeah, and I think also taking Leonardo as a very young man is also a nice touch, right? It's like we don't think about famous people like this. It's like when we think about them in our minds and imaginations, it's their fully formed adult selves, but they were children once too.
Hmm.
You
Yeah, I always think of Leonardo da Vinci as like the guy from was it Ella Enchanted? No, Ella with Drew Barrymore, and he was sort of her
Gosh.
fairy godmother. And,
Yes.
yeah, and he had the beard and yeah.
Yes, yes.
So
Uh,
your next
Um,
book,
the next book is B.A. Shapiro's latest, The Lost Masterpiece, which is about Berthe Morisot, who was one of the few Impressionist painters in France in the 19th century. I love the Impressionists. I love Morisot's work. Like, look at that cover too. I mean, doesn't that just say, read me, read me, read me? Um, I just, and, Shapiro has really become known as like the sort of art historical fiction writer, right? She sort of came on the scene with the book, I'm going to look at the name
Art
of Art
Forger.
Forger, which was about the Vermeer that was stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. And she did tons of research for that, but that was all, it's a novel, it's an imagining of what happened. And so, her stuff is just terrific. And so I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, I've been a fan
Yeah.
since the Art Forger. She actually came to my library where I was at that time.
Woo!
And yeah, the research was unbelievable.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
love
So that one's out next week. So
Mhm.
pre-order, people, pre-order. Um,
Talk about pre-order.
pre-reserve, pre-reserve from the library. Okay. All right. And last but absolutely not least is Jane's next book.
She's not here to tout it, so we're going to do it for
That's what we're
her.
going to do it for her. The Women of Arlington Hall. Okay. A female codebreaker puts her future and her heart on the line in a novel about love, loyalty, betrayal, and the Cold War spy games. I mean, also, what a great cover.
Mhm.
Um, I love Jane's writing. I love Jane. I'm here because of Jane. I mean, um, and so this book doesn't come out till August. Um, but so she's kind of, I think, on this vacation, maybe gearing up for the big launch. So I'm just so excited for her. I mean, it's such an exciting book. And this kind of subgenre within historical fiction of spy novels within historical fiction, women as spies, has become so popular and for good reason, right? It's exciting to read. I mean, these are women really were spies,
Mhm.
like during the Second World War, and even during the First World War, but for sure during the Second World War, there were quite a few of them. And then after, during in the Cold War. And the stories are just remarkable.
Mhm. That and again the sort of the lost stories, but also women have always been spies, not just in World War One and World War Two, right? So having that sort of near history helps us understand, helps me understand, I think too, that women have always had some effect or impact on every political thing that's happened in the
Yes.
world.
Yes. Yes. And I think Natasha Lester's latest book, which is one that Jane did in a previous one of these, is about one of the premier World War II spies. I mean, she was really part of the reason the war was won.
Hmm.
I'm blanking on the title of that book.
I can
It
look
just
it
came
up,
out.
but
It's it's Natasha Lester's latest, everybody. Um,
we did mention it before.
yeah, yeah, I know you mentioned it before. Um, yeah, so that is it.
Is it Mademoiselle Alliance?
Yes, the Mademoiselle Alliance.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
it. Yep, yep, yep.
Um,
Uh,
we do have a couple more minutes. I do want to ask you if you if there's a particular time period that you prefer writing about and why.
well, so far I've really stuck to the 20th century.
Hmm.
I think it's just honestly, it's a comfort thing. I would love to write about the Middle Ages someday,
I would
maybe.
love to read about the Middle Ages.
Like, doesn't that sound like a total far cry? I mean, a long time ago, I was sort of an Arthurian legend geek.
Oh.
Mm, so like that is part of my DNA somehow. Um, I'm not saying I would write about that, but it's part of the pull to the Middle Ages and
Hmm.
the Renaissance. I also love the 19th century. Um, and actually, when I was an English major a long time ago, my focus was novels set in the late 19th century. So I've read a lot of those books too.
Hmm.
Dickens, not my favorite. We have a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, I have that with Shakespeare.
Oh, well, there you go.
So thank you again for doing this and popping in when Jane couldn't be here. I hope we have you have back again at some point.
I would love
Thank you
that.
all for everybody who's been here for all of your amazing suggestions and your fun commentary, which I've really enjoyed. And I will share with Kerry after the talk. But I will send out a list as well as the video. And I hope you all have good reading in the next month. And I'll see you in July when Jane will be back with us. Kerry, thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone who came tonight.
Oh, it's my favorite program, I think, all month long. All right, good night, everybody.